round of applause for that piece. Thank you. On the program, I can see Obat Masira and Misango Arts Ensemble. Are you here? Please take it away.
Thank you very much. My name is Akecha Obat Masira. I've known Professor Bethwell Ogot since 1980. And today we have decided to, we are going to dramatize a poem that I wrote some few days ago to celebrate his contribution. Misango Arts Ensemble presents the epitome of African historiography, Professor Bethwell Ogot. Welcome.
Yo soy un hombre sincero, de no crece la palma. Yo soy un hombre sincero, de no crece la palma. Guantanamera, Guajira Guantanamera, Guantanamera, Guajira Guantanamera.
Professor Bethwell Ogot, an eminent and towering African scholar and a world-renowned historiographer who shaped the contours of Africa's historiography to the world through UNESCO's initiatives. He demystified Eurocentric fallacies of Africa's history. Back then, Africa was a dark continent, a continent devoid of its own history. But he reconstructed the rich and splendid heritage of Africa's historiography through indigenous African knowledge systems to generations and generations and generations, to generations of great historiographers in Africa and beyond. And the 26th president of the General Assembly of UNESCO in 1991.
Aye, Africa, Africa, oh liberté. Aye, Africa, Africa, oh liberté. Aye, Africa.
Professor Bethwell Ogot, the gem of game and the jewel of Africa's history. Iconic African thinker, researcher, historian, mathematician, educator, political strategist, and institution builder. Creatively weaved indigenous African narratives of the pre-colonial Africa's great past. Weave the past to rekindle Africa's rich and splendid heritage. Professor Bethwell Ogot legacy goes on and beyond his grave. Professor Bethwell Ogot, a great political strategist and institution builder. Professor Ogot left his footprints on the sand of time in African historiography.
Sachuguga, sachubega, notsi, pata pata, sachuguga, sachubega. Here mama, here mama, here mama. Here mama, here mama, here mama. Here mama, here mama, here mama.
Professor B.A. Ogot, as a political strategist, worked closely with other Kenyan nationalists during the Lancaster House Conference in London for Kenya's independence. Through UNESCO's initiatives, he developed a new historical methodology that hugely transformed Africa's heritage and recognition. An eminent giant and an African scholar whose legacies in historiography echoes worldwide and transcends scholarly brilliance. A towering historian whose intellectual discourses exemplifies scholarship.
Yeah, yeah,
Professor Bethwell Ogot denied the opportunity to be the first Vice Chancellor of the University of Nairobi due to ethnicity. Yet, Kenya then had only 3 professors: Professor Bethwell Ogot, Professor David Wasao, and Professor Simon Ominde, the Kenya Academic Excellence. Professor Bethwell Ogot, your great contribution in history are as formidable as the earth and that vast stretch of the surrounding of Great Lakes in Africa. Professor Bethwell Ogot, an architect of academic institutions, the epitome of African historiography, Professor Bethwell Ogot.
Parabella la bam bam,
Session. The first one from the Old Testament, read by Alan Ogot. And then immediately thereafter, the second reading from the New Testament, read by Yvonne Okello. You're welcome.
I am David Ogot Jr., Alan's brother. He couldn't make it because I stay back in Nairobi, nursing my other brother who's recovering from an illness. So I will be doing the reading on his behalf.
25, 6 to 9. Isaiah.
And so the first reading comes from the book of Isaiah, chapter 25, verses 6 to 9. And it goes, "On this mountain, the Lord Almighty will prepare a feast of rich food for all peoples, a banquet of aged wine, the best of meats and the finest of wines. On this mountain, he will destroy the shroud that enfolds all peoples, the sheet that covers all nations. He will swallow up death forever. The sovereign Lord will wipe away the tears from all faces. He will remove his people's disgrace from all the earth. The Lord has spoken.
That's Revelation 20.
Good morning. My name is Kenneth Okello. I'd like to make this reading, but now that my sister is here, she can go ahead and read.
Good evening all. Good morning all. My name is Yvonne Okello. I will be doing the first reading. That's Revelation 20, verse 11 to 15. Then I saw a great white throne, and him who was seated on it. The earth and the heavens fled from his presence, and there was no place for them. And I saw the dead, great and small, standing before the throne, and books were opened. Another book was opened, which is the book of life. The dead were judged according to what they had done, as recorded in the books. The sea gave up the dead that were in it, and the death and the Hades gave up the dead that were in them. And each person was judged according to what they had done. Then death and Hades were thrown into the lake of fire. The lake of fire is the second death. Anyone whose name was not found written in the book of life was thrown into the lake of fire.
In the mood of celebrating Professor, appreciate the work they have done. At this point in time, I want to request the St. Paul's Yala Praise and Worship team to give us a brief session of interlude in terms of a chorus, as I invite Dr. Owen Makonyango to come as we prepare to get through a session of tributes.
Those who are able to rise, maybe you can rise. If you can't, sawa sawa. Ukitaka chochote mwambie Yesu. Ukitaka chochote mwambie Yesu. Mwambie Yesu. Mwambie Yesu nani? Mwambie Yesu. Mwambie Yesu anaweza.
Ukitaka chochote mwambie Yesu.
Ukitaka chochote mwambie Yesu. Sema na Bwana.
Mwambie Yesu.
Mwambie
Yesu. Mwambie Yesu. Mwambie Yesu anaweza.
Ukitaka chochote mwambie Yesu. Ukitaka chochote sema na Bwana anaweza. Ambia Yesu. Ambia Yesu nani? Ambia Yesu. Mwambie Yesu anaweza.
Ukitaka chochote mwambie Yesu.
Sema na Bwana.
Ukitaka chochote mwambie Yesu. Mwambie Yesu. Mwambie Yesu. Mwambie Yesu. Mwambie Yesu anaweza.
Shida gani unapitia? Sema na Bwana anaweza. Mambo gani unataka? Mwambie Bwana ataleta. Mwambie Yesu nani? Mwambie Yesu dada yangu. Mwambie Yesu. Mwambie Yesu anaweza.
Ukitaka chochote mwambie Yesu.
Sema na Bwana.
Ukitaka chochote mwambie Yesu.
Sema na Yesu.
Mwambie Yesu. Mwambie Yesu. Mwambie Yesu. Mwambie Yesu anaweza.
Usiende kwa waganga watamaliza mali yako. Sifanye ushirikina utapoteza Bwana nie. Mwambie Yesu. Mwambie Yesu nani? mwambie Yesu, mwambie Yesu anaweza.
Ukitaka chochote mwambie Yesu.
Sema na Bwana,
Ukitaka chochote mwambie Yesu. Mwambie Yesu.
sema
Mwambie Yesu. Mwambie Yesu. Mwambie Yesu anaweza.
Makofi mazuri, a round of applause. If you want anything, tell it to Jesus. That is the song. Welcome.
Good afternoon, everybody. Fellow mourners, good afternoon. Hiki kitakuwa ni good. Fellow mourners, good morning. The late professor traversed this world in his role as an academic, and today
sorry about that. A little sleeping protocol. First, I like the young boy, the speaker, to take this microphone up on the stage. I don't know, I told him earlier. Hello, and may I call the chairman of the home committee to come forward and welcome us officially.
Thank you, Doc. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. God is good. And all the time. Thank you. My name is Asamo Pot. I'm the chairman of the home committee. Please feel welcome at the feet of Jesus. It's good to welcome my church, my bishop, together with the clergy for today's service. What we are saying through the Central Committee Chairman, Dr. Luach, is everybody, we are requesting that everybody speak from up there. Otherwise, karibuni sana. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Home Chairman. When I told you to welcome us, it is everybody, but you only welcomed me. Let me now welcome everybody else. Karibuni nyinyi yote. Thank you very much for coming today. Asante sana. Asanteni sana. First, let me welcome the Mheshimiwa for game. Mheshimiwa Elisha, Onyang, wherever you are, you may stand up and wait for people. That's fine. That's fine, okay. All right. I know you are paid to make noise, but that is enough for the payment you had. Okay, thank you very much. And also the governor of Kisumu County, who have some remote relationship with the game, as he will tell you. Mandanyogo, Professor, stand up and say hello. And all the other dictionary. I like to just polite notice that this funeral is for the family, okay? This is not a political rally. Can I say that there is no greeting while I'm talking? So those people just first sit down and stop disturbing. Nyinyi mnasimama hapa, tokeni hapa. Just clip. Let's have some order. Yeah, just to warn you, this is not a political rally, so politicians have no say, and if they're political operatives, have no directive to tell us what to do. We do what we like. And the church has been invited to help us bond the friend, but they take directions from us. So thank you very much for accepting that as appropriate. So we'll start speeches. There are 3 groups of speakers. There will be the academicians, at least they used to be, and the politicians, and then the rest. The politicians, academicians are going to give 40 minutes each to speak. I mean, not each to speak. They can speak 100 of them, so long as they speak for 40 minutes, take a minute or 2. We don't mind how many of them speak, so long as the time is. And I'm going to be very strict with time. And then we call the politician, who will be led by Elisha Nyango, to call whoever, and the politicians here includes governors, although seriously they're not politicians, but they used to be. And then other people who have been past politicians. And I forgot to introduce the most important person in the crowd today, former Minister for Health, Mzee Isaac Okero, who happens to be my uncle. That's double credit. Mzee Okero, I'm not going to ask you to stand, but everyone should see where you're sitting and wave at you. Makofi kwa Bwana Okero. Asante sana mzee wangu. Okay, so we go straight away. Now, the academicians are going to be led by Dr. Owen Makanyango, and I'd like them to come and all line on this side so that they don't have to be called and walk 1 mile. So whoever you want to speak, call them and come and line here, and you go up there and speak. Okay. So you go and go up there, straight away, and start there. Thank you.
I don't know why in my mind we had really eaten time. I didn't know it is still morning, but it is. So I just wanted to recognize that many universities are represented here. Moi University, Maseno University, of course, University of Nairobi, Masinde Muliro University of Science and Technology, Kenyatta University, Jaramogi Oginga Odinga University of Science and Technology. I want to start by asking the student who was to present a poem from Maseno University, this campus, to make his presentation, and then we move on with the academic people. He was seated somewhere here. Obat, is he still around? The student presenter? Okay. Then may I start by recognizing Dr. Biegon, who is representing Kenyatta University. Let me recognize Professor Willis Kosuro, University of Nairobi. I want to recognize Professor Barack Owol, who is presenting Jaramogi Oginga Odinga University of Science and Technology. I want to recognize Professor Mwanzi, who I think is on this campus. Let me start with Professor Okoth from Masinde Muliro. They had a deal with Professor Ogot that he had to write a book on the Padhola people, a Luo subgroup from Uganda. He has the book here. I think he has hit the target, and he wanted to present a copy to Professor Madara. So Professor Okoth, let us start with you to make that presentation. Professor Okoth. Professor Madara, just come up here, say a word about it, and then Professor Madara is seated there. You will go down and present the book. He is also a historian.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mark Owen Onyango, my former colleague at Maseno University. I'm very happy to be here to mourn my mentor. I can see very many faces that I used to do intellectual labor with at Maseno. Of course, the governor, Professor Nyang Nyong, is my longtime friend. Not to wonder so much, Professor Ogot, those of you who read my tribute to him, I'll just recollect the intellectual challenges he used to give me. The first one was to edit a book with him, which I did. It was Conflict in Contemporary Africa, the result of proceedings from the Kenya Historical Association, of which he had been associated with for a very long time, as reflected in the eulogy in the book of service. That was 2000. The second challenge he posed to me was to give an inaugural lecture, the pioneer inaugural lecture at Maseno. I accepted, but politely told Professor Ogot that I would do so after Maseno had become a fully fledged university, which I indeed did in 2003. And the title was The Dishonest Broker in Africa, a diplomatic historian's tour of U.S.-African relations since 1945. He challenged me to do that. I wrote the draft, I shared with him, and he told me, "What one?" as he fondly used to call me. This is an inaugural lecture material. So that lecture was delivered in the Millennium Hall in 2003. The third challenge was, as the MC has just said, and in this audience you are very familiar with Professor Ogot's seminal book on history of the Southern Luo. The Southern Luo constituted, and they still do so, the Jopadola of eastern Uganda and the Luo of Nyanza. And so he pioneered that, as the poems ably reflected in the migration and settlement. You found yourselves here and we remained across the border. And so he wrote that history covering the two nationalities. Now he challenged me, what one? I already did my part, but he should take over now. The Jopadola took care of me very well. I appreciate them. But now it is also your turn to write your own history, much as we remain the same people. I took up that challenge with my former student at KU, Dr. Ogola. I did his PhD at KU, and I was one of the examiners. So we teamed up, did the research over the years, and eventually came up with this book, whose title is just simply History of Jopadola, from early times to the present. Myself and a group of historians from Masinde Muliro University of Science and Technology had arranged to come and visit Professor Ogot, the doyen of Kenyan and African history, to just say hello.
I was preparing to hand over a copy, a gratis copy of this book. But the Lord had his own plan. God loved Professor Ogot, and I believe Professor Ogot loved him, loved God. That is why he lived for 95 or 96, but 95 years. And so, without consuming much time, I would like to, as I promised in my tribute, that I would pass this gratis copy to the family. And I've written an autography here. Just allow me to read briefly, MC, to Professor Bethwell Ogot, of course posthumously, with the compliments of the authors. Were two, but now I'm here. Dr. Gola also passed away way back in 2019. And I'm acknowledging him. Thank you for challenging us to write this book. We have not disappointed you. May your soul rest in everlasting peace. Professor P.G. Ogot, February 21st, I was meant to have attended the Requiem Mass yesterday, but I couldn't. Nevertheless, I said for the burial I'll make it a point to come here, so the date can be changed with my permission, February 22nd, 2025. Thank you, my good friend Mark Owen, for giving me this chance. I now have the humility to present this book to... Right, okay, let me descend. Thank you so much, Monas.
Yeah, that was a history colleague of Professor Ogot. This is Professor Okoth. As he presents the book, I think let us appreciate. May I now call upon Dr. Ogalo, who was also the chairman of the funeral committee at Maseno University, to say a word and invite the Dean, School of Arts and Social Sciences, to say a word before I invite the next person, who will be from Moi University.
Morning, mourners. God is good, and all the time. Thank you so much to our Lord Bishop and members of the clergy, to our Governor for Kisumu, His Excellency Professor Peter Nyang' Nyong'o, to members of the political class, the Member of Parliament for Game, and the women rep for Siaya. Allow me to, one, acknowledge the presence of the members of the Funeral Arrangement Committee of Maseno University. Could you just rise and wave to the crowd? Members of the funeral committee, quite a number of them have not come, but thank you so much. Thank you for that. Allow me also to recognize the presence of a member of the department who has arrived. Others are on the way, Dr. Millicent Atieno Sasso, Could you just rise and wave to the crowd, Daktari? Thanks a great deal. Now, on behalf of History and Archaeology departmental members, and on behalf of the Funeral Steering Committee of Maseno University, allow me to, with deep sorrow, express our very dear condolence to the family of Professor Bethwell Ogot. Now, Professor Bethwell Ogot was a member of my department. During the time that Professor Ogot was with us, I want to say, without missing any word, that we had the privilege of enjoying and benefiting from the wealth of experience and knowledge that he had. Not so many people had this privilege, and for that reason, I want to state that as members of History and Archaeology Department, we have been orphaned. So just as the family is orphaned, I would also wish to say that members of History and Archaeology are part of the group that are going to be orphaned here. Other than that, Professor Bethwell Ogot to us was, number one, an academic anchor. He was our mentor. Professor Ogot was also, other than that, he was also our advisor. He was our pillar. Professor was our beacon of hope. He was our guru. Most of us considered him a walking or a moving archive. Any question, any concern, any discourse that we had that perhaps required somebody to help us if we were having different shades of opinion, Professor was ever ready and was forever willing to put us through and give us the right direction. We have indeed lost our gum and our gel that always put us together. Now, other than that, I would wish to state that Professor loved stories. This has been captured in a lot of information in the media, and he loved stories. He was a good storyteller. Professor was not just a good storyteller for that matter. As his chair of department, who had a lot of time with him that we shared, I can authoritatively confirm that Professor did not love stories for the sake of stories. He loved stories because from stories, Professor initiated discourses. From the discourses, Professor engaged in writings. From the writings, Professor published. From the books that he published, Professor generated knowledge. With the knowledge, Professor has died a sage. And I thank him and I salute him for that. I will miss a very good friend and a good mentor. He always encouraged us to be very keen on writing. And whenever there was any discourse that existed between you and him, or between people who knew him, he would always ask you, if you had different shades of opinion, he would always ask you to put it in writing. That was his approach of doing things. Anything that you did with him as a form of discussion, he would ask you to put it in writing, so that he understands what you're thinking about. And that was Professor for you. Other than that, other than creating the discourses, I would wish to state that Professor, at the knowledge level, that is where he anchored his philosophy. And what was his philosophy? Professor's philosophy was very simple, that knowledge should not lose its original pertinence. That was his concern. The reason he started his knowledge provision through telling of stories. He believed that knowledge should not lose its pertinence, and hence he started it from storytelling, the source of the information. A lot of us do not care of that, but that has a lot of strength in creating coherence and being very consistent and seamless in writing, as his writings were for those who ever got the opportunity to read his work. Professor mentored all of us. Maseno University is very lucky because it is professor who pioneered the history and archaeology department and nurtured it. And for that reason, we pride in having had professor with us. I can see the MC is on my case. Otherwise, I would have said more because of the time that we had with him and the more that we got from him. We want to say that we are proud of Professor, and when he is even not here, we will still be proud of him. Other than that, we want to say, or I want to say, that in as much as today, we are physically going to inter his body, his legacy in the context of his writing will always live with us. And his soul, may his soul rest in peace as he dances with the angels. And we want to tell the family that we are bringing with us very passionate and deep prayers to you. And we are praying that may our good Lord give the family the fortitude to brave this particular challenge. Thank you so much. I had the opportunity, I've been given the opportunity to now invite my Dean, that is Dean School of Arts. I want to gladly take this opportunity and invite Dean School of Arts, Professor David Ongarora, to address the Monas. Thank you so much, Monas. Family, take heart.
The family of the late Professor Alan Bethwell Ogot, members of the clergy, the Governor Kisumu County, MP Gem, colleagues, friends and relatives of the family of the late Ogot, I stand before you to convey our deepest sympathies to the family for this painful loss. As the chairman of the history department has said, Professor Ogot, until the time of his death, was emeritus professor of history in the School of Arts and Social Sciences, where I'm serving as the dean. Therefore, on behalf of the entire school and the academic fraternity at Maseno University, we stand with the family to mourn the departure of this legendary leader and scholar. As the chairman of history said, Professor Ogot mentored many, and I'm one of them. When he was the director of the Institute for Postgraduate Studies at Maseno University, he nominated me to proceed to New Delhi for my doctoral studies on an Indo-Kenya cultural exchange program, for which I'm grateful. And later, I had also the privilege to serve as chairman of Department of Linguistics when Professor Madara Ogot, his son, was also Deputy Vice Chancellor, Academic and Student Affairs. So, personally, I stand before you to say I'm grateful for the friendship that I've enjoyed with the family of the late Professor Ogot, and also join you all to mourn this great and legendary scholar. May God bless each one of you. Thank you very much.
Let us appreciate the Dean. With all protocols observed, may I ask the representative of the Vice Chancellor of Moi University to come and make his presentation, Professor Haemba Ongeti. Karibu.
church, the family of the late Professor Bethwell Ogot, leaders present led by the Governor of Kisumu, Professor Anyang'o, fellow mourners, hamjambo. Hamjambo tena. My name is Haemba Ongeti. I'm a professor of curriculum and instructional methods at Moi University. I'm also the Deputy Vice Chancellor of Administration and also the Deputy Vice Chancellor of Academics, Research, and Student Affairs. And for today, I stand here on behalf of the Vice Chancellor of Moi University, Professor Kiplagat Kotut, to pass our condolences as a university to Professor, the family, and all assembled here. We are here because Professor Bethwell Ogot was a part of our Moi University family. He was the second chancellor of Moi University from 2003 to 2013. During that period, he showed the greatest leadership in academia. During that period, Moi University expanded and it adopted the mantra of widening access to higher education. At that time, I'm proud to see my former Vice Chancellor here, and I request you, Professor, when I finish, you come and, I'll become the MC now, you come and continue. Professor Richard Mibei. Together with Bethwell Ogot, they expanded Moi University to the point that at that time, by 2013, when Alan left the position of being our chancellor, we had about 52,000 students enrolled in Moi University. Of course, today, I met a colleague today who said, Sinajua Moi University ilifungwa. So I'm here to announce that Moi University is still alive, except that it doesn't have 52,000 students. Moi University has now 22,000 students. But we are still grateful to Professor Ogot for many things he did for us. Where we stand now, where I stand today, is land that was donated to Moi University by the late professor. And for that, we thank him. Of course, later on, you know Maseno is our son, and we were just glad to bequeath the land donated to us by Professor to Maseno. So, to the family, I know perhaps he didn't consult you as his children as he gave us the land, but know that in our hearts, we hold you and them and him dearly. I want to stop there, but before I do, I should also mention that Alan Bethwell Ogot was chancellor when we set up 5 universities in Kenya. 5. I'm thinking about Masinde Muliro University, I'm thinking about Karatina, I'm thinking about Rongo, I'm thinking about all those universities that were set up. It was because of Bethwell Ogot. I want to stop there and, as I said, invite my former Vice Chancellor to continue.
Yeah. Good morning, good morning, fellow mourners. I appreciate the opportunity that was given to me by the acting Vice Chancellor Moi University to say one word or so. I know I'm standing in the presence of His Excellency the Governor of talking. One professor who had been waiting to say something approached me and said, you come from Africa? I said, yes. Might you know or be near where this great professor called Bethwell Ogot comes from? I looked at him and I said, he is my boss, he is my chancellor, and I'm the vice chancellor. And I have tea with him most of the time. I became important for a few minutes. I say, was a great man, because before I sit down, I also want to say, whatever field of studies you are in, whether arts, engineering, medicine, whatever it is, that is your God-given abilities. Use it the way our late professor used this, and he contributed enormously to all of us. May God bless all of us. Thank you.
The church, for the university, we will wait and ask for a chance for the Vice Chancellor of Maseno University when he comes to present his eulogy at that time. For us in the university, we have taken time up to that, and the rest we donate to the Vice Chancellor when he comes. Thank you very much. Let us appreciate the universities. Of course, I'll ask you again.
Thank you very much. We proceed with our sessions of tributes, and I want to thank Dr. Makonyango for managing his time so well. According to our agreement, he still has about 10 minutes. So congratulations. Can we appreciate Dr. Owen for managing that time so well? Dr. Luach, okay, you will take over, but...
Sorry, Claudia, I'm still in charge. I'll tell you when your time comes. Thank you very much for being useful.
That's now being erroneous and is unfortunate.
No,
the church, God, human beings cannot command God.
Okay.
And you must understand that faith is supreme. So please, can you submit to God?
Yes, I do.
So unless you don't want us to be part of this ceremony, tell us, we can depart. So can you just go back, please? Please go back. Please go back.
Can I talk to the
family? No, please. Just give us time. We are the church. This is a church service. We want to be orderly. We are in the context of a church service. This is a solemn service. You've given us a program which we are using. I've not skipped anybody. Can we all turn to page 8 of the program? If you have it, can you carry it? Or there is another program that you... Is there a different one? Please let us know. Okay, thank you. But let's know that we are in a church. We are in the church service. Please understand that. And God is beyond human. He's the creator of the heavens and the earth and all that is in it, including you. We are ordained to serve on behalf of Jesus Christ at this point in time, according to the apostolic succession. Thank you. So at this point in time, we want to invite the person who will take us through friends and colleagues, and we are glad that the MP of this place is here. Honorable MP, please, I know you are a man who understands the church. Please welcome. Thank you.
so they can. The two guys can. Okay, around. Even being about business chart. God is good, and all the time. Adwaro bedo motegno nyaka ane borie pol emomiyo podalame ruothi ng'ama lomo loyo tingama lomondachu kaiewe cheni duto metingama lomolo gimana papa the church and fellow mourners, the family of Professor Bethwell Ogot, Waziri Opio Wandai, the CS Energy, the governor of Kisumu, Professor Nyang' Nyong'o, the deputy chief of staff, my brother Eli Dowalo, Dr. Christine Mbaka, my sister, the women rep of Sierra, and I think all protocol observed. Allow me, in the shortest time, so that we finish with the political class, then we allow the church to give a good send-on for our brother, Professor Bethwell Alan Ogot. At this juncture, allow me to invite first Joe Akech Donde to greet the congregation and just say one word. Let's use a minute each.
Thank you, my friend Elisha. The church, thank you very much. The family, mine is to, as an elder in game here, to invite all of you to this funeral service, and also to recognize that Professor Bethwell Alan Ogot, as in game, we are very proud and very thankful for his life. He has truly lived with the identity of the game people, showed the world how we are in game, and like those game legends who went earlier than him, they have given us pride for being very proud of our game people. Also here, I'm sure Elisha will, I don't know whether we'll give him time, the former MP Isaac Omolo Kero, also with me here. We are the two standing former MPs of GEM, and we have come to say kwaheri to Professor Ogot. Thank you, Elisha. We are very proud of you as our Member of Parliament, and we thank you for the much you have done to make sure that this occasion goes well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joe. Allow me to invite our first MP, the Honorable Molokero, to give his tribute. Ogamuze is very strong. I know him, leave him.
Nyinga en Isaac Umulo Okero. Udo kero kamadao loka ulumbi kocha. So my late mother, Niliungun Flora Mulo, Nyam Kok, she came from Ogenya, Kamiliungunum Masiro, Ogenya Masiro. Kane Pudwatendo, Ogenya Masiro, kod Ogenya General Jine Pako. Nikech kane in wendo moher, to kotedni gimoro, timiyi rech miluongo then odhadho. Kochai timiyi ring'o kata gweno. An abiro ka mondo awach matin. To gima adwa wacho mokwongo, ni ka in kod thuolo minyalo timogo gimoro to mimna thuolo ndalo ariyo kende. To ber ka ok iwuoyo to tim. Nikech kitimo to kata ji ma ok nikodi chieng' moro none. Mano e gima akwayo ni mondo obedie. Now coming back to a language mane colonial powers omiwa English. Ogot kopiche ne wan Gambira to kod jothuro mamoko. Anyiko ka ne wan kod Araramwaga mabende ne wan go. Ogot wan go. Nyaka maseno wendo romo gi ji mopogore. I want to say this. There is a commodity which is called in English time. Time has no caliber. Time does not discriminate. Time is time. There is a lot being said about time, but there are not very many people who value the need to keep time. Udhuluwa wachon piny ru gumage. Today is Saturday. Tomorrow it will be Sunday, whether you like it or not. Omiyo ka in good time, to in gimoro midwa timo, do it quickly. Ogot was a great friend, and I associate myself with all the things that have been said about him through the academicians. I followed a different path after I'd been kicked out of Makerere for being a difficult student. Eventually, ne oromo kod Ogot kendo London, kotimo research mage in relation to history and mag Jiluo. I was reading for the bar then. Ogot valued merit, and I can tell you this as a secret. Keep it to yourself. Where we stand now in game, people like merit. There was somebody way back before I was even born called Odera Ulalo. Odera Ulalo saw when the railway was being built from Nairobi to Mombasa, Nairobi to come straight to Kisumu. When some people were trying to stop the railway for coming and they were fighting with spears and bows and arrows and all the rest of it. Odera Ulelo saw somebody with a piece of paper written, and the piece of paper was given to somebody else there. And from there, the fellow just looked at the piece of paper and took certain decisions. He then said, what was on that paper? He soon realized that somebody who loves you should give you knowledge, not necessarily food. You got to remember that when somebody gives you knowledge, the knowledge goes to the part of your body which is very valuable, the head, and the thing that stay there that keep. Times have changed. We don't live the way we used to live in villages as Jomodake Pengi. But even when times has changed, we got to stick to two things. The truth and valuing time. If you have a good idea and you don't give that idea to somebody in time, by the time you are thinking about giving him that idea, you would have made a mistake. I'm happy that you've all come here to see us taking our brother to his last home forever. And I want to emphasize something that Waswahili say. Waswahili say kwamba uzee si ugonjwa. They also say jungu kuu halikosi ukoko. And I want to say the ukoko should be knowledge and not necessarily gimichamo. Nikishingamo micheo michamo. Kiny kapinyiru tingem na kumide. I'm thankful to the academic people from all the places where you have come. I'm very proud of you. But as for game people, the one thing I want to emphasize to the game people is seek knowledge. If you meet somebody, ask somebody to help you build a school or a health center. That is what is important. Don't ask somebody to give you money so that you can go and drink, because alcohol has no caliber.
Thank you.
I'm grateful to you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Molokero, for that speech. Honorable Kinyany, please come, then you can recognize the MCs who are here. After this, if they're not there, there'll be no other time. William, we don't have time, eh? You can come here. Okay, lusa. Chaka. No, just go on.
Good morning. My name is Kinyani. I normally say that I'm the president of Republic of Yala, meaning that I'm the area MCA.
Okay, William. William, I think for the MCS, just the governor there, then you speak. Unless the speaker is there. Yeah, set up, set.
Welcome, Governor. Welcome, Governor. My people of Game, could you be quiet, please? As I said, I'm William Kinyanyi. I'm the area MCA. You are all welcome, and we appreciate you people who have come to help us bury our brother, Professor Ogot. All those people are here. You're welcome. We appreciate you. Governor Karibu. I think there's some few MCAs that have come in. I've seen Saif Baraka. And maybe the others that I've not seen, you are all welcome. I think also our Speaker of the County Assembly is also here. You're welcome. As it is now, I don't want to take a lot of time. Those people who have come to help us give a proper send-off. Adwinyang, I can see you are also there. And that's why I say that all other MCAs who are here, tumeshukuru. And we are together. Let me leave it at that because I have my seniors here. They'll talk maybe later. I have my speaker. I think that he'll do a lot of introduction and maybe talking. So I welcome you all, and I appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you, William. While we were at the core of speeches, the Professor Nyabundi arrived, the Vice Chancellor for Maseno University. So I'll allow Owen to invite him. Then we can get back. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I also recognize Professor Aduol from the Technical University of Kenya. I think I saw him around. Thank you for coming. But I had asked that when the Vice Chancellor Maseno University comes, that I be given time to welcome him to present his eulogy on Professor Ogot. Maseno University, in any case, was the last call of duty where he served for life as Professor Emeritus. We were praying the clergy. So Professor Julius Nyabundi, Vice Chancellor Maseno University, please come and present Asante Sana.
Morning, ladies and gentlemen, fellow mourners. First of all, I wish to pass my condolences to the family of Professor Ogot and all the friends who are here today. My name is Julius Nyabundi. I'm the Vice Chancellor of Maseno University. Professor Ogot was my friend, personal friend, and mentor for many years. Professor Ogot joined Maseno University in 1991. I joined Maseno University in 1996. During those years, we worked together very well. We danced together. God was a great dancer. So whenever there was a function, we would join him in dancing. And over and above that, of course, we as university fraternity celebrate Professor God as a scholar. Professor Bethwell Ogot, I'm not a historian, but I cannot talk about God without talking about history. God belongs to the first generation of African historians who laid the foundation of African history, exercise in understanding people in their own particular times and circumstances, not a program of name-calling or blame-pinning. Professor Ogot and his generation undertook the enterprise of liberating African history from the oppressive past that had denied African historicity, condemning it as dark continent without history. I think, in my opinion, that is the biggest contribution that Ogot and his generation of historians made for Africa. After serving in a number of universities, including Makerere, Nairobi, and Kenyatta universities, Professor Ogot joined Maseno University on 14th January 1991 as a professor of history. Actually, he joined Maseno University. He had worked there. He worked with his former student, Professor William Uchieng, who was at that time the principal. That tells you the humility that Ogot sometimes had. Uchieng was a good student. Uchieng invited Ogot to work with him in Kenyatta University, where I was chairman of the Department of History. And when Uchieng came to Maseno as the principal of Maseno University College, he again invited Ogot to come and work in Maseno. There, he appointed Ogot as the professor of history and also the director of postgraduate studies, the position that he held until he left Maseno in the year 2003, not leaving but converted himself from active professor to professor emeritus. In fact, Ogot was the first and only professor emeritus in this country. If anybody knew of any other, I feel challenged, or I stand challenged. There was no other professor emeritus in Kenya until Maseno made Ogot professor emeritus in the year 2003. That means that he continued to relate and interact with Maseno as a professor. He continued to guide students. He continued to mentor students and staff, even as he was not actively coming to work on a daily basis. He was with us until he kept coming to visit Maseno time and again. Ogot was an avid writer and scholar. His books, papers, monographs, and also they're numerous. I can't even name them. I can't even list them. He had an association with UNESCO, which benefited Maseno greatly. Even in his late age, as late as even this year, Ogot was still writing. I think his pen may have just stopped when his hand could not lift. In the recent past, Ogot wrote the history of Kisumu, history of Nairobi, I think even history of Mombasa. At this time, being ably assisted by his son, Professor Malaro Ogot. As we stand here today, we are mourning Professor Ogot as a great scholar, a friend, and a person who retired. He chose to retire back to Yala. Many of us, after achieving that kind of stature, retire in Nairobi. Ogot chose to retire in Yala, where he has remained as a role model. And I want also to appreciate Molo Kero, who just talked here, as another person who has chosen to retire in Yala and therefore show people that you don't have to develop just Nairobi, you may also be a role model in this place. As we sit here today, we are mourning a great man, we are mourning a pioneer scholar, pioneer historian, and in Maseno, we are mourning a pioneer historian and a mentor of the university. God contributed immensely and remained very close to the first principal, Professor Chie, even Professor Nyango, and even myself when I came into the office. We continued to interact with Professor God time and again. In fact, I think the last time we visited me in Maseno was in 2022. He came with Madara and I took him around just to appreciate what has happened since he left. We all are very saddened, but we believe that, as the Bible says, this is a path for all of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, our Vice Chancellor. I have asked the church to allow me to call Professor Aduol to say a word as a former Vice Chancellor, if he is still here. Professor Aduol. Dr. Luoch was very particular that he wanted to say a word so that we close that slot of university people. And the clergy says 1 minute. And I know you, Professor Duol, you know what 1 minute is.
My Lord Bishop, I want to begin by saying that I'm an Anglican. I worship at St. Mark's in Nairobi. And I worship at St. John's, Jonyo in Seme. Before I make my remarks, I have not seen what has happened here this morning as an Anglican. We are going to have to talk about that later. Fellow mourners, I didn't plan to come and speak, but I've been invited to say a word or two. I don't know whether I'm the kind of person who should be saying something at the funeral of Professor Ogot, especially unplanned like this. But I want to say this. When I was growing up as a little young man in primary school in Kisumu, on weekends, we liked walking with my friends to Milimani to see the big buildings there and how great people lived there. And my uncle with whom I was living told us, young people, when you get by Kisumu Hotel, don't cross in front of the hotel because only Europeans are allowed to go in there. Walk on the other side. But there are only 3 Africans who are allowed to walk in there. Professor Wasau, Professor Uminde, Professor Ogot. They are the only Africans who are allowed to go into Kisumu Hotel. I had not seen any of this. You can imagine you are being told this, you are a class 7 child. When I went to university, because I'd heard so much about these people, I took time just to see if I could look at them at a distance. I was privileged when I entered university. Professor Ogot was our deputy vice chancellor. But as you can imagine, a first year and a professor and a deputy vice chancellor, the distance was huge. So we could only see him at a distance. And it was great inspiration to us. Having said that, these are the people who made. Now, those of you might think, who are not Luos might think I'm being tribal. But these are the people who made Luoland to be described as the cradle of education and of academia. It was Wasau, it was Ogot, it was Ominde. I don't know whether the same is going to be said in the next years to come. I think I've said everything that I could say about Professor Ogot. Thank you, sir, for inviting me.
Thank you very much, Professor Dual. My friend Elisha, may I give you back this? Thank you so much.
Allow me to call the Speaker of the County Assembly of Siaya. And let me recognize the arrival of the Governor of Siaya, James Bob Agri Orengo.
The Anglican Church, led by my bishop, allow me to declare, like my predecessor, that I'm an Anglican. The speaker who just left here disclosed that he worships in Nairobi. Allow me to follow suit and declare that my parents worship at St. Martin's Siger. And I worship in so many Anglican churches. At times, my bishop, you're aware, I attend a gathering of 15 Anglican churches. And I don't get tired to go to church the next Sunday. Because I'm an Anglican, I will want to be very brief, because I also know how my bishop treats speeches in funerals. I am the Speaker of County Assembly of Siaya, and my work here would just be to introduce members of the County Assembly that are here, and if allowed by extension, just recognize members of the devolved governments who are serving in various capacities very briefly. Allow me to start by the members of Siaya County Assembly. I want you to be upstanding wherever you are so that I introduce you from this podium. Would you be upstanding? I know there were 5 of them, but I will just introduce the ones that are here. Honorable William Kinyanyi is the MCA for this area and also the chairman of Public Accounts Committee, Siaya County Assembly. Mheshimiwa, thank you very much for the effort you put to make this a success. We have with us Honorable Brian Chieng, who is the MCA for South Game. South Game is around Akala area. Brian Chieng, would you lift your hands? Thank you very much for coming. We also have a nominated member by our giant party, the party ODM, to represent women, and she's called Dora Achieng Bonyo. Will you be upstanding? Raise your hands. Help me welcome Dora by way of clapping. My bishop, I am aware some members have not arrived, but allow me at this point to recognize, which one?
Seth.
Ah, sorry. Actually, we came with him. We have the member for East Game, Ramula area, called Seth Ochieng. His common name is Raonyadundo. Raonyadundo, did you lift your hands? We recognize you. He is as short as his name. Members of the second or the third regime of county assemblies that are here, could I just recognize you in one voice? Nancy Wamwai, I can see you there. Thank you for coming. Kawur Joseph, he was the former member of county assembly representing here. We have Aringo, Morris Aringo, wherever you are, thank you very much. We have with us Linda, former nominated member, thank you very much. We have Edwin, former elected member for South Sakwa, thank you very much. And we have with us Angie, we normally call him Angie, but Angeline is also a former nominated member by our giant party ODM. We have with us here the Honorable Abayo. Abayo is here. Thank you very much. We have members of county assemblies from across the country. If you are there, could you just be upstanding? I saw Adu Inyang. Any other? Because it's just one of them. If you allow me, he can stand from here representing all the other members who are not members of Siaya County Assembly, to say a word from here. He is also the Majority Whip, Kisumu County Assembly.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mine will be very, very brief. I am Honorable Sethu Chinkanga, popularly known as Sedwinya. I am the Majority Whip and at the same time member of County Assembly representing Market Milimani Ward, where Professor Adwul was talking about. Professor Ogot is currently, was a resident of Market Milimani Ward, and I bring condolences from the people of Market Milimani Ward, here accompanied by my governor, Professor Peter Anyang' Nyong'o, and at the same time my friend Waziri Opionda and I. Otherwise, thank you very much, the people of Siaya. Pole, asanteni sana.
Thank you very much. He didn't mention to you, he is a member of the ODM party, the ticket on which he got nomination and election. The members of the county executive of the Siaya County Assembly, wherever you are, I've seen there Makorege. Would you be upstanding? Makorege is our CEC member for lands, and he comes from Game Sub-County. Thank you. We have Dr. Edgar Otumba. Dr. Edgar Otumba is our CEC member for education. He comes from Rarieda, Uyoma to be precise. Thank you very much. I have seen a tall man who is my uncle. He was formerly also a chief officer, but now is at the national government. He was chief officer for health. Erokamano nera. Ibi rama nyakichunka. Juogi okoni erokamano. Up to that point, I've also seen Victor Nyagaya, the CEO for LREB. I'm dealing with devolution because after that I'll go to the deputy governor that is here.
Time.
Yes. Now, deputy governor, I want to, before I invite you, let me say a word. I come from Asembo, and the woman who is my auntie, who was married to Professor, comes from Asembo. Jo Asembo mantie karko kaneba dumalo kuma untie. Jo Asembo untie. Ero kamano wagonu, ero kamano kuomio Professor Nyako, maber morite, momiye thuolo mobedo Professor mongere piny mangima, maber kuserach. Jo Rarieda duto man kar kae, agmoso unokwe uru. Wago ero kamano kuomio wanyako morito Professor manyaka koro Professor kawuono nendo. Now, Kawuokanyo, allow me to thank the academia, or the academic fraternity, for giving Professor a chance to excel, and he has excelled. He has made us proud as people of Game, people of Siaya. At this point, I want to ask the Deputy Governor for Kisumu to come and say a word before I hand over to the area Member of Parliament.
As the Deputy Governor comes, may I recognize the presence of the Vice Chancellor, Masinde Muliro, University of Science and Technology. Prof, karibu sana. Mpigeni makofi tafadhali, eh? Asanteni sana.
Thank you very much. The leadership of the Anglican Church here gathered together with the membership, the family of Professor Bethwell Ogot, who today gather here together with all Kenyans from all walks of life to pay tribute to this great son of Kenya. The governor of Siaya, the governor of Kisumu, the CS Energy, who is here, a son of Siaya as well, members of parliament, all protocol observed. Professor has taken his final bow today. Indeed, it is true
And it is said that in Siaya, if you are to throw a stone, you are likely to hit a professor. It's also true that when death calls, it is most likely, therefore, that a professor may be the one whose bell has tolled. And so today we are here and we gather in this solemn ceremony to say bye to this great man. I never got an opportunity in life to meet him many times, very few times indeed. But I am friends with those who believed in him and with whom, if you sat with them talking about Luo people, then you'll most likely hear the name of Professor Bethwell Ogot. Professor Nyong'o had a lot to say about him. Baba, His Excellency Raila Amolo Odinga, had a lot to say about him. The governor of Siaya had a lot to say about him. And I know that the professors may have spoken before I arrived. I'm not sure if Professor Adam Solo is here. We were charged with the responsibility last year and part of this year in organizing our cultural festival. And when inquired from our leaders who our keynote speaker would be for that ceremony, it was unanimous that Professor Bethwell Ogot was one such person. I missed a big opportunity to get to meet him towards the sunset days of his life. I was meant to accompany Professor Adam Solo for the interview. He was part and parcel of that, conference, but he was able to give that interview online. And I know that as a people, he had great respect for us, and we thank God that when we gathered last year and early this year to think about our origin and to think about our identity as a people, we were, privileged, quite privileged really, to have him speak to us as a keynote speaker, probably one of his last public engagements. May our good Lord rest the soul of Professor Bethwell Ogot in peace.
Thank you, Deputy Governor. Let me also recognize, as we were speaking, Dr. Tiende Amolo, the MP for Ariada, seated right in front of me, arrived. Allow me also to recognize Dr. Barbara Magoha, who is with us here, who were last year when you were sending off your lovely husband. Thank you, Dr. for coming. Now let me call Dr. Christine Ombaka, the women rep for SIA.
Thank you very much to the family of Professor Alan Bethwell Ogot, the church, and the congregation who have come to bid farewell to Professor Mosowunimsawa Uru, Mrembe Uru. We are here to celebrate a life of a great man, a man larger than life, a man I met when I was a high school student at Moi Girls High School. I met him not physically, but I met him through his writing. I was taking history, and one of the set books that we had to read in order to pass exams and go to the university was one of his works. That book was called Zamani. Zamani was a history book written by Professor Alan Ogot. It was well written, very simple to understand, and we read it and we passed with distinction. I did very well in history because of the writings of Professor Ogot. Even though I never pursued history at the university, I still met Professor Ogot as a student at Nairobi University. We attended a lot of his lectures here and there, but we admired him for the works he was doing in history and his eloquence, his ability to express how history has evolved. The coming of the Europeans and how they changed Africa. It was really beautiful. That was my second meeting of him as a student in Nairobi University. Somehow we lost touch. And I got to meet him again at Maseno. I joined Maseno in 1992. He was there in 1991. But when I joined Maseno, I had my master's. And he told me, what is master's? Go for your PhD. Nyagem pokisomo. Do you know ni any woman can be called Mrs. Ombaka? Do you know that? Any woman can be called Mrs. Ombaka. But not any woman can be called Dr. Ombaka. That was him. That was the guy, that was the professor who wanted his students to go further in their education and improve their lives. Professor was very, very inspiring. He motivated us as students, and we presented our research papers at the institute where he was director, Institute of Research. We were there constantly. I remember I had a paper called Nyako Mochwanyore, the times and challenges of Nyako Mochwanyore. Professor loved that paper. He told me, Ombaka, this kind of paper has never been written by anybody. You are doing a great job on gender issues related to Nyako Mochwanyore. The challenges of that girl is immense. He added me more points and more points, and he kept on calling me until he said, Chopokanye, gi pepacha, kelarewa song. I brought it to him several times. That paper he made sure was published, and it is one of the journals that he recommended. I really want to salute Professor for inspiring me and inspiring other student mentoring. About 6 months ago, before he passed on, I came to see him at his home here in Yala, and we had a great talk. I came to visit him, an award that was given to Mama Grace Ogot by Nyinam. Nyinam is an organization of Nyinam, women from the lowland or from Nyanza region. They had a big celebration for women, and they are awarding women who have worked hard, women who are alive or those who have passed on. Mama Grace Ogot was one of those who had given an award, and I was given to bring home to Professor. That's when I came to see him and to present to him that award. When I was there, we had a great talk, very deep, and I learned that day that Professor was a silent politician. We see him as a scholar of history, but Professor was also a politician at a quiet level. We talked politics, and the things that I want to tell you, what he told me, is that politics is not war. People have misunderstood politics. They think that if you're fighting, if you're abusing, if you're stabbing people with knives, if you're shedding blood, that is politics. And they say politics is a dirty game. No, 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 no. Professor Ogot told me it is not dirty. Politics is clean. And he gave me an example of his wife, Mama Grace Ogot. He told me, do you know Grace Ogot played clean politics? She never abused anybody. She never hit anybody with a stone. She never organized goons. She never shed anybody's blood. I want you. He continued to say, I want you to be like Grace Ogot. Yes. I want you to be like Grace Ogot. Don't play the kind of dirty politics I'm seeing in Kenya. Nyagem, play clean politics. And I vowed before him that I will play clean politics. No tiko kawacho. I am 95 years old. I can bless you. or I can curse you. But Nyagame, you have lost you never pursued your academic career kakanadwaro. But the mbele gisiasa to play it safe, play it peaceful, love one another, and ensure that game and Siaya develops. Thank you very much, the family.
Thank you, Christine. Thank you for that speech. At this point, let me invite Dr. Tindemo. Jabura. Rating chanumi number maber. Marine for track. Nitio maber jadu.
Award to the church and the clergy, to the Ogot family, to Jogem, to Monas. Nyasai ber. Yani kata duo kawa nyasai ukunyal. Nyasai ber. Sechete. Your Grace the Bishop, I am told here you must humble yourself. Here, unless you are a professor, you talk very little. And I'm not. As a junior academic, as a junior politician, but also, I will speak on behalf of the people of Rarieda. Because some of you do not know that the person who made Professor great was his wife, Grace Akinyi Nyanduga Ogot. Jorarieda nika, Jorarieda manika chunguru, chunguru mundo neu, just stand up. Yawa pamuru ne Jorarieda ge, pamde uru Jorarieda ge. Hello? Awach kosawe. I apologize for those who only understand English because I'll speak in Luo, but Luo and English are interrelated. If there's any word you miss, ask your neighbor to interpret. Awach kosukika wachi. Ani luongano tiende molu kum jomoko ng'eya, an mjumbe mararieda, sani wabiro kae ni kaka jorarieda, kaka jodala gi Grace, joka nyaluo. Wan kae gi jorarieda motegno, wan kae gi jorarieda motegno, wan kae ni gi jomor kuomu kong'eyo, no wad gi Grace. The Honorable Jalango Nyanduga. Motelo nwa Rarieda mondi kapo kwa donjo. Wan gi waziro walo giri wan walu agi speaker Okode. Wan gi joma nodhi school chon nyako okiri pacho chung jogi oneni. Mage joma nochako Maranda. Index 1 and the first captain Mamaranda. Ka wabiro apenjo joma no wabiro go. Jomoko nosomo Maseno. Andok nasomo Maseno, lakini anbi nasomo Maseno. Ngenya nasomo Maseno mixed. Professor Nyang iwinjo. Anan Maseno mixed. Momiyo joma iwacho ga nini gisomo Maseno. Jadongo molokero. Wane jo Maseno gogogo. Odho nadhi Maranda. To an gi jayala moro. To anyise ni into, chalna ni into nisomo River Yala. Ok nidhi Yala school. Engineer Maxwell Mito. Watimo mos. Na watimo mos gi Nairobi kendo nyaka awachop kae. Professor Ogot en ng'ano ma ka in jaluo mora mora e piny ngima, ok e piny luo ma Kenya kende, to nyaka ing'e. Nikech onge jaluo e piny ngima, ichak Congo, mibi Uganda, midhi Tanzania, midhi Ethiopia, ichop South Sudan, ichop Central African Republic, miduok Kenya, mosendiko kuom jaluo maloyo Professor Ogot. And we should not take it for granted, because he could have chosen to write about anything else. But he chose to trace the roots. And I challenge the historians who are here, pick it from there. Because I think where Professor Ogot left this thing, there's something to be continued. In Luoland and in Doluo, there are words we share with Swahili. And some people think we've corrupted it.
But my inquiry suggests it is because of our interactions with the Arabs in Bar El Ghazal that we pick certain words like mesa. They think we are talking about meza ya Kiswahili. Mambe sawa, maok meza ge. Uwinja gozo kuwinja. Now, Professor Ogot did not like politics. And I know that even here, the bishop might say we don't talk politics. And we won't talk politics. But he interacted with politics. Nurumu gisiasa. Professor Ogot kungurumu gisiasa in 1955. Ko yudo basari mar government, mar somo. Siasa kozok siasa. Kata managemka. Ka ilisho mi basari. Siasa kozok siasa. In 1960, Kawaloso wach katiba, Lancaster, Professor Ogot was the advisor to Tom Mboya. Siasa kozok siasa. In 1967, Kakoro jo Luo nigi football teams ariyo, Luo Union and Luo Football Club. And they decided to merge it. Ngamanuket Ogot. Emo result a Gor Mahia in 1968. Siasa kozok siasa. In 1970, the first person who was elected as the Vice Chancellor of the University of Nairobi, because at that time it was election, was Professor Ogot. Siasa kozok siasa. But the biggest siasa en kakoro noru iromo ginya asembo. The Honorable Grace Ogot. Koro siasa odonjeo. Odonjo kozok odonjo. Ema miyo joma wajo ni kikwa wach siasa. Ngeuru ni Professor Ogot be interacted gi siasa. Academics kanyo siasa bende nitiere. Anagoma awacho mana ni Nyasaye mondo ke chunye kamukwe. Eruru kama nainyo.
Thank you. Then Dr. Nyikal, please, 1 minute. The church has reminded me that our time is almost up. We have maximum 10 minutes. And we still have about 4 people to speak. Yes, Dr.
Ne kanisa motelo no nyasi mugik mar Professor Ogot, the family of Professor Ogot, all his colleagues, all the dignitaries and all fellow mourners. Good morning. Ma'am, I'm Dr. James Nyikal. I'm the MP for Seme. But I've really not come here as the MP for Seme, but to a large extent as somebody who has known Professor Ogot for a long time. Although we have not interacted much, but I've known it because way back, the early 60s, when Kenya was still under colonial rule, the names that we knew about academics was Professor Ogot. I remember when I was a small boy, my father always told me, you know, those days mothers used to stay at home and the fathers were in Nairobi. But my father was in Nairobi, was a cook in Kileleshwa. In those days, mainly only white people lived in Kileleshwa. But the only other people that I could remember was Professor Ogot, Professor Wasau, the first vice president, the Duong Jaramogi Oginga Odinga. So what I remember most, and this is really the beginning of leadership as we mourn him, was my father always telling me, because he was living in a small domestic quarters. It was actually one room, so when we visit him, that's where we used to stay. But in the evenings, we would walk around and he would tell me, if you go to school and study, you will also live in these houses, like where Professor is living. So I knew from that time that there must be something very big about going to school
that will make you be like Professor. I then later on joined the University of Nairobi Medical School. He was already a professor. And although I hear there is no, we shouldn't have politics, but really, if merit was the issue even from that time, I think he should have probably one of the people who should have led the university first. But that didn't happen. But later on I wondered, history. So what is so great about history? But I've since learned that history is what actually guides the future. And lately, when we had the Pidgin Luo function, Professor gave us guidance of where we as Luo people arrived here and how we arrived here and what factors about us drove us to come here. And I think he expressed, he actually came online and guided on if you want to move forward, even in politics, how you must take care of history. So as we say goodbye to him, and we say pole to his family and to all his colleagues, what we must really think of, people like them, do we have people of that caliber anymore? Do we take guidance and vision from them? I think that is how we should look. I can see professional team there. Some of them, we worked with them at the university for a short time when I was there. But I think let's have more of you who guide us the way Professor guided us and stuck in his line. Some of us kind of deviated a bit, but those who have stuck to their lines like he has, like I know many of you have, will take us far. So that I said that I must come today, although I've arrived late, and say goodbye to Professor. The history of this country, he has written it luckily, but actually he lived it. And with that, he actually had a vision for the future. And those are the kind of visions we should look at. Sometimes people deride academics, but it is the understanding of how the world is structured and how the world moves that will guide us into the next step. With that, I ask God Almighty to keep Professor's soul in eternal peace.
Thank you. I'd want to stop Dr. Nyikal from talking. Nige Dr. Nyikal kendo nyanyawara. Ewe mi obero doctor. Nige osmosis. By osmosis. Adigeo gawa umo Professor Nyongo okendo nyasaurika. Ewe mi obero professor. So Jasembo, we acknowledge Nikara Obende, Nyiwa have made other people professors. So we are very proud kaka your game. But goes right. Adwacho, for the first time during this funeral, I, as the MP for game, I got a huge support from the political class. Nyikal supported us. Dr. Tina Molo gave us his donation. Atani gave his donation. Owalo gave his donation. P.S. Omolo gave his donation. The President of the Republic of Kenya gave his donation. And the CS Wandai also gave his donation, including Nyamita and the Honorable David Chi. So I'm very grateful for my colleagues who came through for us. Today, the entire constituency and the country is mourning as we lay to rest a man of unparalleled and distinguished service to his people. Professor Ogot immersed himself into valuable research works and dived deeper into the balance of academia, not for personal enrichment, but to help quench the thirst of many that deeply yearn for knowledge. At a time that knowledge was scarce and limited to a few, for that we are forever grateful for Professor for delving in that research front. Through his trailblazing in telling the story of our people and culture, many got to understand and appreciate our identity as a Luo people and the historical underpinning that keeps us together. Professor Ogot has lived his life through endeavor to service and contribution to society, impacting many lives. Key to note is the Odera Kango campus of Maseno University, whose land was donated by Professor to help champion the cause of education in game. Even as our hearts are heavy with the burden of losing this towering figure of our land, we remain strengthened by the rich legacy he leaves behind and the timeless pieces of published works that will keep him immortalized. I am honored to have been taught by Prof when I was in Kenyatta University and to have built a meaningful friendship thereafter. I bring to this family of Prof my heartfelt condolences and those of the great people of game, and pray that the family will remain strong and after this enormous loss. May the good Lord that I worship and believe in entire his soul, eternal peace. This morning, Bishop was reading Psalms 116, verse 12. And that's what I challenge the family to read. Read 12 and 13. Oh Lord, what can I give you for the blessings and benedictions you have given me? And the Lord answers that through offering. This morning, I went to do that, exactly that in church, after reading that verse. And I want to thank the committee Madala, led by Zamopot, for having done a good job, for raising the money Manokonyo Dala. Of course, I also thank the teachers. They came through for me. I sent Dala through Ogam 108,000 shillings from the head teachers Magame. And Ati have here the balance Manodong Managi Choko 111,000 shillings. So I think Anagwero Kamanu Kumgimamar Professor Angenu Professor then number one throughout Otio Maber, Ondiko Buge Mabeo, Ongeka Mawinje ni Professor Nogo Boto. Bepoka winyo ngama Professor, Mago Bote class. Ingen game ka, emaji soome. Jibanga nkiro mogo, oluongre daktari, tokara en ngama cholodo. Adwan jogeman ka, kiluong ni daktari, ibe doctor kakombaka, Mosome University. Kiki luong ri gimoyi, iboyingi. Machiemo ngado terige koto ketho nyingi. With those few remarks, as I invite the governor of Siaya to come and invite the governor of Kisumu before inviting Owal and then finally the CS speaks. Let me ask the church and the choir, Siso, we na morome wacho ni adwaro teko manyasaye pinyo pongo yuma ganjao. Adwana winj mano mondo roho no dhi malo.
As the song is going, we invite our Honorable Governor, please. Please. The Bishop requests that you come in the interest of time.
Erokamano ahinya. Kapok awacho gimoro amora. Kendo kawuono wan kaka jo Siaya kendo jo Kenya. Gik ma biro wachore kae kawuono. Onego wach gik moko ma jo Kenya biro paro godo Ogot ne en ng'ano. Nikech nyocha Ogot nolose piny Luo. Kanolose piny Luo, there are people in Democratic Republic of Congo. There are people in Tanzania. There are people in Uganda. There are people in Ethiopia. There are people in Sudan, particularly South Sudan. There are people in Chad who are here in Siaya. When we heard a very seminal speech from Dr. Ogot, I want to implore you, what is being said here today is for the record. It will live with us. With those initial remarks, let me call our brother from Asembo Rarieda, Mheshimiwa Walo mondo bi owach alung jomoko modong. Erokamano, Mr. Walo.
To the church and the family of the late Professor Bethwell Ogot, let me pass my condolences to join the people of Asembo in passing my condolences to the family. Because way back in Asembo, where I come from, the late Mama Grace Ogot was my aunt. And the Nyanduga family and the Walo family have had long and very, very close relationships built on strong foundations of Christian virtues. We want to remember Professor Ogot as an accomplished academician, a researcher, but also somebody who was very passionate about development. In this country, we have had two phases of liberation. The first liberation led to the attainment of independence of the Republic of Kenya. That was led by politicians. The second liberation facilitated the transition from single-party dictatorship to multi-party democracy. That again was led by politicians. But with those two liberations in place, good people, we are now on the threshold of the third liberation. That third liberation will not be political, but it has to be economic liberation of the Kenyan people. That is why His Excellency the President, leading from the front, is very, very deliberate about the development agenda of this region of Nyanza. This is a region which has largely been neglected before, both politically and economically. But this time round, under the fifth administration, the President is determined that we are going to change the paradigm because Nyanza is part and parcel of Kenya. And those of us who serve in the high echelons of the national executive, working in partnership with all integral stakeholders from this region, the governors, the elected members of parliament, both inclusive and imperative, we have agreed as a people that we are going to be united in the pursuit of economic development of Nyanza. And we have zeroed in on about 10 major projects which we want to see through during the tenure of President William Ruto. The first one is the Lake Region Ring Road, which emanates from Busia and goes all the way to the Kenya-Tanzania border. That road will open up the entire lake region for purposes of trade and commerce, and also facilitate trade with the neighboring countries. The second major project we want to pursue is the Korusoin Dam. Korusoin Dam will help us mitigate the floods in Nyando. It will help us facilitate irrigation during dry spells. It will also facilitate last mile connectivity of water and also augment the efforts of the Sondu Miriu electricity project for purposes of electricity. In equal measure, we will pursue the Magwagwa Dam in Kisii. We also want to pursue fish processing plants along the lake. The government is already doing quite a bit here by establishing and operationalizing fish processing plants. We want to see revitalization of the sugar companies, because sugar is a major economic base of the Nyanza region. We want to foresee revitalization of cotton, mining, starting with the Makalda mines in Migori, the mines in Asembo, just to mention but a few. We want to see a potato processing plant in Kuria and a soapstone factory in Kisii. Of course, all this will be augmented by enablers such as electricity, water, and interconnectivity of roads. So what I want to assure you, good people, is that under this government of William Ruto, we want to see tangible economic benefits for the good of the people of Nyanza, just as is happening in other parts of the country. Today, I've not come here to make a long speech, but I've come here to convey condolences of His Excellency the President to the family, and may I now have the honor and privilege of reading the President's condolence message. Condolence message from His Excellency Dr. William Samoei Ruto, President of the Republic of Kenya and Commander-in-Chief of the Kenya Defense Forces, to the family and friends of the late Professor Bethwell Ogot. Fellow mourners, we have come to lay to rest a hero of our times. Our country has lost an academic and an astute thinker who selfishly contributed to our progress. Professor Bethwell Ogot was an exceptional scholar whose work inspired many people. His leadership extended beyond academic and administrative roles in the university. Yet his commitment, compassion, patriotism, rigor, and integrity always shone like a lighthouse. In spite of enormous accomplishments, Professor Ogot lived a humble life, a lesson to all of us. Professor Ogot's service to the community will forever guide, shape, and influence many generations. May it be a comfort to the family, the academia, and friends that a grateful Kenya is praying for them at this sad moment. Be encouraged by the word of the Lord in Psalms chapter 46, verse 1. God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Rest in peace, Professor Dr. William Samoei Ruto, PhD, CGH, President of the Republic of Kenya and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces. Thank you very much.
Let me now call upon our very own Cabinet Secretary for Energy and Petroleum, intellectual Opeo Wandai. Karibu, karibu.
The Bishop of the Diocese of Maseno West, and your brother, the Bishop of Kisumu, of Maseno South, all clergy, the family of Professor Bethwell Ogot, my colleague leaders, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Okweuru Kendo, Ruthieso Pake. I will be very brief. First and foremost is to express my condolences to the family of Professor. You know, when I was a student here at Sawagongo, between 1987 and 1990, Grace Ogot was the MP then for this constituency. And many times Grace would visit us at Sawagongo, accompanied by Professor Ogot. But the first time I came to close contact with Professor Ogot was in 1989, when I was appointed the library captain at Sawagongo. Professor came to officiate an event, an academic event at the school. And he had very candid conversation with me as the captain of library about matters books and how to take care of books. That was my first interaction with Professor at a close range. Later on, when he had retired, I think it was the year 2019, when we came to send off another great son of this land, Professor Kokwaro, here. I had a chance to visit him at his home here in Yala, together with Baba Raila Amolo Odinga. He was still very, very sharp, mentally speaking. And therefore today, we are sending off a distinguished son of this soil. And if there is something that we must learn from Professor Ogot and his generation of academicians, in my view, there are three. One was humility. These were not people who would go about boasting about their achievements. Their achievements were evident, were apparent to all and sundry. Two, they cherished integrity. During their times, those who rose through the academic ladders did so on account of merit. Not like these days when you see people going by very, very big names on titles, sometimes in academia. But if you follow through keenly, you find a problem with how those titles were acquired. I can tell you, even in the non-academic sector, that is something which is really troubling. They detested mediocrity. Professor Ogot and his generation of academicians did not like mediocrity in public service and in any other service. And that's others who have been privileged to be placed in positions, various positions of leadership, that we should do whatever the quality services to our people. Marade Katieko. And Professor Ogot suffered immensely the curse of this country, mind tribalism. I am sure, and Professor Adwell mentioned here, Professor Ogot, Professor Minde, Professor Wasau, they were distinguished scholars from this region. But none of them rose to the position of Vice Chancellor of any university in this country, of their tribal orientation, their tribal inclination. I'm lucky these days at least some Luos have become professors and Vice Chancellors, like my good teacher, Professor Nyabundi, who is the Vice Chancellor of Maseno, and many others, including Adwell, who was previously in Tuk. On Professor Ogot, we must reflect on those issues as a people. Koratieko. Ung'eyo ni ande Baba Raila Amolo owuok kamanyo kom mar chairmanship, kom mar African Union Commission chairman. Kendo luoro piny mangima. Africa. To uneno kanyocho wecho owuok kowuok Addis Ababa. To jomokwongo miel gin jomagi. Jomokwongo miel gin jomagi. Mano nyaka watch loud and clear. We must make it loud and clear that this particular AUC election cycle has taught us some very valuable lessons as a people. Bishop, it has made us know who are our genuine friends and who don't mean well for us. Koro ndio wang'eyogi. Wang'eyo osiepewa makamili gi jomoko dwan waber. Kamano. Yande uneno ka President William Ruto owuotho gi jakom Raila kagika nyaka dakika mogik. Owuotho omanyo mbudhne renge semo president mamoko. To an kaka ung'eyo ok ahero mung'o wach. Ka samoro jomoko paro ntinde an minister koro ok anyal wuoyo. Adwa wuoyo mondo uwinji. Kendo nyaka wuo mana siachwa ka. Awuo koso kika wuo. Awach koso kika wachi. Correct. Wan koro wang'eyo osiepewa. To wang'eyo bende josikwa. To ka iwuotho gi jowasikwa to you will treat in the same manner. Kamano. Mogik. Adwa mondo ung'e ni wan e ODM. Kendo an senior member mar ODM. Omiyo ok binyal weche ODM abende antie. Kamano. To mogik kabisa. Ni an tich masano miya en wach mar keyo mach. An kura keyo mach sani. Ake koso kika ke. Ake mach koso kika ke. Correct. Wuok tich mabiro wan kod yaga ka. Abiro keyo mach kod yaga wuok tich mabiro. Elisha iwinjo? Elisha, yeah. Wan kayo nigo bende kod commissioner mar SRA Wafwa Jaduong' Midiwo. Nyasaye mad gwedhero kamano ahinya. May God bless. En wuok tich makinyni wan kod yaga ka. Wago touch ka e weche mag development mar President William Samoei Ruto kod Raila Amolo Odinga. Erokamano ahinya.
Erokamano. Intellectual. Koro sani wan gi speech mar jatendwa Raila Amolo Odinga. En gi condolences mooro kae. Ok onyal chopo ka nikech pod en oko. Omiyo akwayo Professor Adams Olo mondo bi osom condolences ma Raila Amolo Odinga. Need the clergy, governors present, MPs present, Speaker of the County of Siaya, County Assembly members, my fellow colleagues from the university, Kapoka Somo, the speech by the Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga, as the DG of Kisumu told you, when we were organizing the Piny Luo that Prof. Professor Ogot has been writing of throughout his adult life and academic life, we decided through the Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga and the host Governor Orengo that the Piny Luo, the fifth Piny Luo, was going to be a Piny Luo that includes the Luos of Kenya and the Luos of diaspora. That Professor Ogot, in numerous books, called the G speaking. It meant that the Shilluk from Ethiopia, from Sudan, it meant that the Alur, the Padola, the Kumam, the Lango of Uganda and the Achol would be here. I'm being told to read the speech. I'll just read it shortly. And what Professor Ogot told us in that speech was that it was time the Luo traced their origin again. And as I read this speech, I think Professor Ogot had seen his going. On the 1st, he spoke to the Luo. And on the 30th of January, he went. It's not a coincidence. He was saying goodbye. Let me now read the speech of Raila Amolo Odinga to the family of Professor Bethwell Ogot. We knew we had incurred an irreplicable loss when Professor Bethwell Alan Ogot passed on a few weeks ago. Subsequent messages of condolence have confirmed that in his death, the country and indeed the world has lost a genuine and authentic touring scholar who made history by changing perceptions about Africa and its history. Through painstaking work, Professor Ogot proved wrong the Eurocentric notion that there was no history in Africa until the colonialists arrived and embarked on so-called discoveries. Professor Ogot did not just argue against this notion. Instead, he wrote about ignored histories of regions and people of Africa, in the process producing several classical works on Kenyans and African communities, especially the Southern Luo. In his academic work, as in his general life, Professor Ogot was authentic, deep, humble, and fiercely professional. I am a beneficiary of his scholarly depth and humility. When I embarked on writing my autobiography, The Flame of Freedom, I turned to Professor Ogot for a review of the manuscripts, particularly the sections that dealt with the traditions, cultures, and migration patterns of the Luo. He painstakingly went through the massive manuscripts, making detailed notes of what needed to be added or removed. Where specific details from various sources, including his own, were conflicting, he was honest enough to say there was no agreement on the issue. He did not insist that his version was the authentic one. Instead, he advised that such narratives be presented alongside each other. Because of his scholarly work, we have a deep understanding of who we are as the Luo, as Kenyans, and the road we have traveled and the distance we still have to cover. In his death, Kenya, and indeed the world, has lost a treasure who will be deeply missed. I have lost a personal friend and a repository who was my easiest reference to critical information on African and Luo history. We appreciate the many works that he leaves behind and where his legacy remains preserved for eternity. I send my thoughts and prayers to his family and friends. Mogi Kowachu, Niwodo Piche, Kichopo Kubedieno, Mosie David Wasaw, Mosie Simeon Ominde, Mosie Francis Ojai, Mosie Elisha Tieno Diam, Mosie, again, Mosie Hastings, Okoth Ogendo, Opinya, Mosie Malo, Afongo, Ero Urugavan.
Erokamano ahinya Professor Adam Zolo. Koro akwayo Professor Nyang' Nyong'o, His Excellency the Governor of Kisumu, and also the acting party leader and my friend for a long time, Peter Nyang' Nyong'o. Good Mary.
To the clergy who are shepherding are here today at the Last Supper with our great friend, teacher, and father, Professor Bethwell Ogot. Yothurwa mobiro ka arus mogik mar Bethwell amoson saureuru. To our fellow leaders who have come here today to pay this last tribute to Professor Ogot. A lot has been said, which I will not repeat. But I just want to recollect one thing. When we were at the University of Nairobi, most of us junior people, lecturers and so on, we used to meet in the senior common room with our seniors. And the person I remember most as a senior, or two people actually, as seniors, meeting as junior people in the senior common room, were Professor Simon Ominde and Professor Bethwell Ogot. The others met us as young people. But two professors who paid us attention and listened to us and encouraged us to make sure that the university and education is proper, was one of them is now lying here, going to heaven. A few weeks ago, something called me and said, go and visit Professor Ogot. That was on the 24th of November last year. And I came here. On my way, I learned that his brother Jasper had also passed on. So I went to see him first because I didn't quite know where Jasper's home was. That incident made it possible for me to see our teacher and professor for the last time. We had a long discussion, but what impressed me most was that in his advanced age, Professor Ogot was still writing and researching. And he decided the last two books he really had to work on was the history of Odera Kango, Chief of Game, and a dictionary, a Luo English dictionary. So he produced this publication just had and gave them to me. I said, no, Professor, I will not take these two books free. Tell me how much they cost. And he told me, and I told me, please give me permission to buy these books because I want to honor your intellectual labor. And he agreed. And he wrote on the book, and I quote, Professor Peter Nyang' Nyong'o, thanks for the intellectual support you have always given me. Bethwell Ogot, November 24th, 2024, Yala Town. And the two books were entitled, one was Luo English Dictionary, and the other one was Prof. Odera Akang. This university is called Odera Akang University. And Professor Ogot's last work was to do the history of Odera Akang, which means that in his last days he came home. First, to do a dictionary, English Luo dictionary. The other one is a book on Odera Akang. When I went home with these two books, my wife quickly took the dictionary and she said she wants to teach her children English and Luo. I've never seen that book again. I hope she didn't give it to somebody else. But when I was looking at them in my books, I found I had this one. So I had to come with this, because apparently there was some spiritual connection between my being there that day and my being here today. Because had I not gone on November 28th, maybe I would not have said goodbye to Professor Ogot alive. One last thing I want to say. There's really no distinction between intellectuals and non-intellectuals. There's really no distinction, because everybody is capable of thinking intellectually. The only thing is that some people take it their responsibility to pursue certain branches of knowledge so that they can help society understand certain things, or so that they can help people live better. Doctors spend their time to get postgraduate degrees in medicine so that they can teach their students better, or treat people better, or discover diseases much better. People like us in political science, we studied politics because we wanted to know what are the kind of systems that govern us, and why do they govern us the way they do. And of course that got us in a lot of problems with the university, because we used to question, why is the university governed the way it is? Nikal, that was a problem. Those questions are not to be raised by people in power, by the way. People in power think that they have God-given knowledge, they should do it the way they want, but if you are a good leader, grassroots must be listened to. Grassroots must be responded to. And therefore, history, written by people like Ogot, help us understand what you are doing as leaders and as intellectuals. So we would say that history is the mother of all intellectual knowledge. Just as when before the Renaissance, in the old days, the church took it for itself to know the basic knowledge for everybody, because God was taken to be the one that reveals everything. Of course God does. But God will not reveal to you if you are too lazy to do your own work to know how society works. So today, we in the intellectual world have lost a very important sage, but as you can hear, his brother Madara is also a professor now. So it's something that the family has also embraced in encouraging members of that family to be knowledge seekers and knowledge providers. Jothurwa, awacho kisungu wangenya yenya, paro nura winje kaka wacho dhulu, ogamano. Uruwa winjo. Gima timre Kenya kawuono. Jomoko dwa gero piny. I'm sorry we have cabinet ministers here, but let me be very frank. Gima timre Kenya kawuono, jomoko dwa noger piny, to giwinj gima jomoko wacho, especially the grassroots. Nyocha uneno ka piny pok owang' nono, nikech wat Gen Zs. Nikech sirikal ne timo gik moko mok ber ne jopiny. Okamano. Waduto nwawuok oko, kaka jogo mosebedo struggle aminga, mondo wa support the cause of the people. Mondo sirikal or listen to the grassroots. Mondo sirikal ong'eni gima timre piny kacha e gima sirikal onego non. Ama sivyo? Omiyo namor ahinya ma brother Owalo biro kaka wuono mondo nyiswa gima sirikal no timo. To actually can listen to Tienda Molo, the two messages were not coherent. Ama sivyo? Because ane mana winjo marach. Kora dwa ni yani kaka wang'eyo kuma Kenya dhiye sani, kaka wang'eyo problem mag jopiny nigo, Kaka ng'eyo ni jopiny poth kowang' nikech DNZs no onyono maluto. Ma jo ODM gi Raila Amolo Odinga mobiro mokonyo pinyni. To ok wadwa ni waneg mach sa te. Wadwa ni joma nie sirkal bong'e ni mach nyalo muoch ka piny ok olos maber. Wayiere? Wayiere? Kik wang'e ni wan kanyo mar nego mach. Wanyalo nego mach kwa ng'eyo ni joma walosogo biro timo gimoro maber. Ka gidagi to mach biro kendo. Wayiere? Wayiere? Bwana Yesu asifiwe. Uwinjo kaka wachono? Odonjonu? Erokamano ahinya.
Erokamano ahinya. Abende adwa wacho matin ahinya. To adwa wache kaparo ngima gi tich ma Professor Ogot osetiyo. And ung'wona nikech nyocha ka wan gi piny Luo e Siaya ka. Noyudo ka Luo wapek. Sani gimoro timre DRC. To e piny ma DRC moloyo kamiluongo ni Ituri. En piny moganda mag Luo nitie. Omiyo gibende gik mwatimo e Kenya ka. Girango kendo ginono ka wuotho kanyakla. Nyocha wan Addis Ababa kacha bende nitie oganda ma Luo ma ago erokamano na Adams Olo emano yudo anywa ma Ethiopia mondo bi kae. Ka wan ne wan kopondo to mosowa ni Luo achiel ta an aparo ni mito puonje to wachon kaka no wachone kaka ji wacho Ethiopia. Omiyo, we got not just a local responsibility, we got a regional and international responsibility. So allow me to say the following. It is something that amazes me that I come to weep for the death of this great man. That so many years ago, hardly 2 years ago, we were at Great Lakes University. And the main speech of that occasion was made by Professor Wasau. And the topic of that discussion was so abstract, you needed to understand philosophy and knowledge to get to know what Professor Wasau was talking about. It was a very long lecture. And it was based on the theory and history of knowledge. Very difficult subject to deal with. At the end of that lecture, President Museveni, who was in that congregation, asked that he needed an audio and text copy of the speech of Professor Wasau, talking about the theory and history of knowledge, epistemology, like some of scholars would talk about. And a few months, Professor Wasau passed away. Now, recently, again, before his death, this great man, and I want to thank Adams Olo, when we were looking for those who are going to give the speeches at Pinlo, that you thought and determined that whether Professor Ogot was going to be able to come to Kupondo or not, his speech was still going to be one of the major speeches of Pinlo. And you came and recorded him. And it was played to the entire world. And I remember when I was in Ethiopia, I met one of the people who come from the great kingdom where the Anyua come from. And they had heard the speech that Professor Ogot gave. And he spoke about
the Luo. Who are we? And a lot of times when I listen to our politicians, and I said recently, if I was Shakespeare alive today, because Shakespeare said you must kill all the lawyers, but I propose kill all the politicians. Because politicians don't listen. They don't listen. They are concerned about the immediacy of the moment. Kakasani, Okero Nikai, Okero Nikai. Okero, we must remember he is one of the few people who are the first lawyers in this country. Kolo Agungskodek. And Okero was a senior member of cabinet, Ndalo Jomo Kenyatta. Me, I was in parliament when we were a single party. There were so many laws in that government of Kenyatta and Moi. But what I'm saying, if you are there without realizing your very essence, who are you? What is it all about? Then we are not going to get anywhere. So I remember what Professor Ogot was saying. Another great Luo from Uganda, Olaro Tunu, Mono Achone, Luo Kitwa, Luo Kitwa, Luo Kitwa. So, what Professor Ogot said during that meeting, and that sector of the meeting was dealing with the intellectuals, our historians, and you heard all of them. It's something which is already on record. When we were burying Jaramogi Oginga Odinga, I quoted Shakespeare, that I come here not to praise Jaramogi, but to bury him. I did not finish that quotation, because Shakespeare said, the evil that men do lives with them, but the good they do is interred with them. I thought that it was the other way around. I had to check it again. That the evil that men do lives with them, but the good that they do is interred with them. Today, the good that this great man, Professor Ogot, did, I hope that it shall not be interred with him. If you look at the history of the Southern Luo, there's a proposition now that the history of the Southern Luo is not just about the history of the Southern Luo. It's the history of antiquity beyond Egypt and beyond Babylon and Mesopotamia. And I can tell you, if you look at commentary that people are making about who ruled Egypt at the time of the pharaohs, and their images, they are not Arabs, they are not white people, they are black people. And if somebody says that the Luos have been part of the history of the cradle of knowledge from Mesopotamia to Egypt to Sudan, I am telling you that that responsibility that you have requires of you as the Luo nation, It requires of you as the Luo nation to be people who can determine the direction where the country is going. And I'm happy about what Raila Amolo Odinga has done in this nation. And Raila, we say Raila can never lose. Raila will always win because he's always on the right side of history. He's always in the right hand of history. Katieko. Kadwa Tieko. Adwa tieko. Ano ka luoro wacha dieri. O ka luoro wacha dieri. Ka gimoro timre e Siaya. Ka do timre Homa Bay. Kik wadhi kuro ka joma paro ni miwa. Imiwango. Imiwango. We are part of this nation. We are citizens of this nation. We are taxpayers in this nation. So when we speak, I don't want to talk to anybody from weakness. I never talk to anybody from a position of weakness. President Kibaki knew, Tokata Ruto Benongeo. When I talk to him, I don't speak from weakness because I know my rights, which are determined by God the Almighty. Don't turn the Luo nation to a nation Maparo Newan Wabiroka by accident. We are not here by accident. We are not here by accident. And we are still looking for the day that Aluo will be a president of the Republic of Kenya. We are looking for that day. Tomano nyalo mana timore kawa odwa milongano ODM obedo motegno. Kawa odwa obedo motegno. Kawa odwa obedo motegno. Maonge ringo. Anangen kwa timo mano will be the path of honesty and truthfulness. Will be the path of doing the righteous thing. Koro akwayo Elisha in manchanigo na simu, I have not heard it. Ni Professor Wewa. And I was glad that you called me. I was glad you called me. Kik wa donji lwenje mag jomoko. Kwa yiko good. Wayike as a hero. Okno Rango, Okno Elisha, Okno Waldo. Wayike as our hero. Emomi waduto wanka. Omi an atieko kakwau. I have been here long enough. Kado okero nyalo nyisi. I have been long enough. Okero mineno ni. Part of his problem. Ngamane wacha dira. Very difficult days. Kane wani serikali chia. So he was in charge of one of the biggest ministries in the land. Power, communications, roads, and public works. That was a Moloker. So Rachne no kohero four. Kohero four. He cannot entertain fools. Gagasani. Nitie jomoko ginyalo bedo ni giria kanya ni jo degree. Inyalo bedo ni reactive four. Inyalo bedo ni reactive four. Inyalo ido ngat ma ja degree to yamo mtoka malicha ahinya to min mare chwer. Koro dhao gi min. Odhao gi min. Omiyo an akwau. Kaka oganda maluo. Ungeno kunwele Kenya ka. Gimuyudo is as a matter of right. We are not ngama wacho ni wadhilemo ni ngato mani kelo siasa maga chagwa ma shareholders. Kenya kai okodo siasa ma shareholders. Wangi siasa mar weg piny. Wani weg piny. Ogot nen won piny. Jaramogi Odinga nen won piny. So Raila Amolo Odinga and won piny. Joy.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Makofi mazuri kwa gavana wetu. Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you very much. Siso Oloya Gidala, we welcome you to take it up as we invite Dr. Owen to just recognize a few people who have just arrived. After that, I will invite Fred Ogumbo to take over and lead us through the tributes from the family.
Thank you very much, Church. You've been very understanding, particularly towards the university people. Next time, Mabudo Rewa, Majo University Hotel, Obende Nwadua Kulwetwa. Adwa Manawacho, ne Apo Kawacho, ne Professor Charles Ochola, Vice Chancellor Matom Boya University, Bendeyan Kodwaka, Charles Ochola, Kibet Kamoro, so Vice Chancellors Karanka Mogondo. Ase Lando Dean Mar Arts and Social Sciences, Dean Mar School of Education, Maseno University, Professor Maureen Olel, Bendobet Bath Family Ka, Echa Enya Kono. Erokamano Uraenya fellow monas. Thank you very much, clergy.
Thank you. Saul Sewe, can you take it away as Fred Ogumbo prepares the family?
Bwana Yesu asifiwe. Kidogo baba askofu, maaskofu wetu, wakuu wetu wa serikali, wimbo ambao nitaimba nilitunga kwa ajili ya Professor Bethwell Ogot. Tafadhali. Wimbo huo uko kwa YouTube, kwa hivyo na download ili niweze kuimbia family. Tafadhali baba askofu. Wimbo huo uko kwa YouTube, mimi ndio nilitunga kwa ajili ya aliyelala Professor Bethwell Ogot. Tafadhali fanya kwa haraka na tazama nyuso za wakuu wetu wa kanisa. Tafadhali. Professor Bethwell Ogot, bara la Afrika twaomboleza kilele cha historia ya Afrika. Mbiu ya mgambo leo yalia Professor Bethwell Ogot, bara la Afrika twaomboleza kilele cha historia ya Afrika. Lala salama Ogot Professor, lala salama Mama Grace Ogot, laleni katika land without thunder, mbinguni kusalama. Lala salama Ogot Professor, lala salama Mama Grace Ogot, laleni katika land without thunder, mbinguni kusalama. Wa Maseno
shupavu wa hesabu, mhadhiri wa historia, alumnasi wa shule ya The Masen, alumnasi wa The Makerere, mwalimu shupavu wa hesabu, mhadhiri wa historia, awendiga otababa, awendiga otababa, awendiga otababa, awendiga awamenye, awendiga otababa, awendiga otababa, awendiga otababa, awendiga awamenye. Asante sana.
Shukran sana. Asanteni. Mungu awabariki.
Ne baba bishops gi kanisa maler mar Anglikana, joka baba gi mama Bethwell and Grace Ogot, jotelo duto mobiro, amoso uwe nying Ruoth Yesu ni mirembe uru. Erokamano, family okwaya ni mondo akwa bishops, kendo asekwayogi ni mondo baba bishop oyienwa mondo wakow japuonj gi kwe, kendo kik mondo rikwa ahinya. Baba bishop aparo ni kapok adhi ire to Nyasaye osewuoyo gi chunye ma en owuon okona nooyo the family mondo tim kaka ber. Omiyo baba waduoko ni erokamano. Nyinga iluongo Nogumbo Frederick, mama Rose Orondo emane nyamin mama Grace maduong', kendo mama Grace nodak kodwa seme mopirowa, manomiyo kochopo higa mar 59 dwe mar 10 ka jahigni 12 to nowachnwa ni wadhi arus maseno. Wach mar arus e ngimana ne ok ang'eyo ni en gima chal nadi, to mama Grace nohera ahinya, omiyo nokuodhona ni kibiro to wabiro miyi kek san achiel mari kendi. Ndalo noero wan kanichamo kek slice achiel matin to nichame Desemba. Omiyo kana winjo ni wadhi arus maseno tadhi yudo san mangima, ne wawuotho mail 8 ka wadhi maseno. Kendo kuom hai marach nadonje kek gi tekona, na adongo ka ng'ama tek kabisa, machamo kek kabisa, mang'ok kapok atieko kek nano. Kapok awacho kapok aluongo jok mawuoyo, adwa ni mondo awachnu ni Dr. Mbaka owacho gimoro ka eri moparo na gimoro achiel, ni mama Grace Ogot nene ok yanji kago siasa. Momiyo chieng' moro Joel Nyaseme ndalo noero jo siasa te ne bet kamoro achiel, to ng'ato ka ng'ato wuoyo, ma Joel Nyaseme nowacho wach moro mane ok adiera, to jomoko bende ni kode, ni mama Grace ne ok onyuolo nyithindo. Ma eri en wach mofuwo, to en wach mosebedo ka wuotho. Mama Grace onyuolo nyithindo 4, yawuowi 3 gi nyaka achiel, to ne en gi nyithindo mamoko bende. Koro chieng'no mama Grace nikech ne ok jalweny nowacho ni to Nyaseme, an Grace Ogot manyanyanduga manyasembo, tatedo ne Professor Ogot Bethwell, to in ma in Nyaseme ni iti tedo ne ng'a?
Mano kende no wango i Joel Nyaseme nikech niluonge ni Nyaseme. Jo a Grace bi luongo ni Nyasembo, te Nyasembo mutedo no got. To in me Nyaseme ni tedo ne nga. Mano ero notieko weche maricho mane nitie ne okoyaje. Adwa kwayo bende ni mondo awachi ka kwaya ni nyo wan kod komiti Nairobi. Komiti ma Nairobi ema nyo en chuny wachni. Kendo Dr. Luoch Ojengo ema nyo jakomwa. Wabet gi buche mang'eny ma ok wabedo gi lweny moro amora e bwo jakom Dr. Luoch. Emomiyo kane wacho wuok kaeri kochung Dr. Luoch ka wuoyo ok awinjo maber. Tiwacho ei muma ni gima notimori ni godiechieng' kik chieng' podhi ka ok itimo nadi ka ok iloso. Miyo kanisa aduoko mos ok awinjo maber. Jaduong' Aluoch duti weyo omiyo akwayo ni awabiro mondo wakow japuonj gi kwe. Omiyo maneno osekadho mondo timre nadi, mano osekadho timre nadi. Koro adwa kawo thuolo makende mar luongo Mama Mary Kinyany kod James mondo obi owach matin kaka jokagina. Mama Mary Kinyany kod James untie. James ani machiegni kae. Huh? Oh, Jimmy, sorry, Jimmy. Ere pogruok James gi Jimmy.
Okay. So good afternoon, the church. Okay. We are here to mourn a great man and a great son of Kenya and great son of Luanda Kagina. Professor has done a lot for us in our village, and we want to appreciate him. And before I say one or two, and Jim also here, can Jokagina, Luanda Kagina, please stand and wave to the crowd. They are here. Please stand. We appreciate them. Many of them would have been here, but they're not here, all of them. Professor and Mama did a lot for us, and for me in particular, they gave me a lot of blessing, advice, even in the course of my work and in my life, and for that, I'll always have a testimony to make, and I really appreciate what they did for me. In Luanda itself, where we come from, Kagina, I think he stood firm, and everybody in the village appreciates what they did. Mama always visited. Whenever we had an occasion in game in Luanda Kagina, she'll come with humility and do everything expected of her. She'll forget about her position as a minister. You'll find her even going to fetch water from the river so that people can work together. She was really part of us. And for Professor, even after Mama had left us, he continued being there for us as a family. And he is actually a pillar and our mentor. And he has done a lot for us as a family. And I think Jim will also attest to that. Really, we have lost a gem. And through that, we wish that everything else will go as per plan. And we thank God for having given us Professor.
Thank you. Just to summarize, add on, Professor, together with my dad, really stood for the people of Luanda Kagina. And the loss is immense. Professor, despite moving to Yala, together with Mama Grace, were always at home, were always at all the functions at home, be they burials, be they celebrations. And it's a big, big hole that has been left in that community. That said, we all must celebrate their life, must thank God for them, for what they did for the people, and we must stand strong in making sure that as a people we continue together as one and see what they always wish for the community come to pass or continue. So to the family, we really condole with you, and we are in this together. Nyasaye okonywa. Thank you.
Erokamano, akwayo jok mabro luongo, ok adwa rikou, takwayo ni mondo waringuru nikech sabende dhi. Koro akwayo Margaret Okelo. Margaret Okelo kende e achiel kuom nyiri mano omako net, no, mano tingo flowers ne Mama Grace. Entie ka obro wacho wach achiel kende. En nyamera maduong'. Bang' Margaret Jasembo, Nera Bob Jalango kod Mama Onyuna ubro wuoyo matin. Margaret wuotho matek. Inyalo wuoyo kata kanyo.
Neklaji, gi welo duto, gi joma dongo duto, ma waneno kobiro konyo waiko Professor Ogot. Amoso unokwe? Yeso paki. Uol malich manade. Iluonga ni Margaret Okelo. And nang'eyo Professor Ogot. Hello. Ya nang'eyo Professor Ogot sama noseromo kod my Aunt Grace kagi limowa kaka nyamin Grace maduong' ne mamana kapod watindo. Kaya had the honor to be their flower girl and ne wabedo friends. Makata kana aga school kuma nasome Alliance to nene walimo giga unegi bedo siepe, and they became my role model. Momi ngima madak nadaga kang'iyo kaka joka nodak. It was very good. So anyalo weyo mana gi matin go, Nyasaye mondo gwedhwa.
Mos kajo Asembo pod biro, Agina inyalo wuoyo matin.
Erokamano Bishop, erokamano jo altar, kuom kawo thuolo gi makende, ang'en gin gi dich mang'eny. Wae Nyasaye, wae Nyasaye. Salimia jirani yako, mwambie habari yako. Erokamano, ang'en kaka wan ka, we have come to celebrate a life which has touched so many hearts. Prof was a person down to earth. Prof no hero me grow mondo you get your own sweat. He didn't believe in handouts. Ok no hero. Prof was a welcoming man. Prof no hero puonjo ji. Ntie wach achiel ma winjo kuom wasomi wadgi. Oh, please, you will correct me if I'm wrong. Prof told me kani wabudho chiemoro why he dropped mathematics. That was his favorite subject. Because the Europeans would not, the language, the body language could not allow them. Africans to go ahead with education. Took another line, history. To enable him, further his education. Majo Kanera, Kuomnyinga Ilungan Benson Agina, Anja Ugenya Sega, Mama Naina Bigai Lagina, and Enyamin Professor Maduong. Thank you, God bless Pudo, Nasayote Luciamo Parnatuko.
Akautuolo makende maluongo Mama Joyce Onyuna. Joyce Onyuna en jaod George Andrea Onyuna Nyanduga, ma jaode emane luo Mama Grace, to en ema koro rito ka Nyanduga gin gi Bob Jalango.
Ni kanisa matayo nyasi jotendwa duto mobiro mondo okonywa kod wendwa duto mobiro ka mosuno kweuru opak Yesu. An machung' ka an Joyce Onyuna kachung' ka adwa wuoyo matin ewi ora. Grace en sister-in-law mara, Professor en ora, to wach madwa wacho tin. Grace ka josetimo arus kod Professor 59 to ne gidhi England. Ka gisedhi, bang'e matin no ne wuon mari obiro. Kawuono obiro dala, Paul opiche. Obiro bang' dweche ariyo kende ka Grace gi osedhi loka. To nobiro kod jodong gi mang'eny, 10 gi wiye. Kendo gin jodongo ma wigi otiywak kaka en. Ma jaduong' ne sinore na kod Odunga.
Pacho kotoi, pacho ema luwo bang' Mama Rael mano nyuolo Mama Grace. Koro Bishop abogna mi dakika achiel kende kiyie.
I'll deal with him. Yeah, you deal with the family. Yeah. Bishop Edmos. Mama Timo.
Yes.
Bishop adwa kwayo wiyo wil gi gimoro. An gi ote mar Dr. Oburu Oginga en Dubai bang' wuok Addis Ababa nyocha kendo chako dhi Dubai. Notemo kabisa ni mondo ochop ka, to kata kamano nobedo ne matek. Omiyo ooro mos mare makende ma ywe pi wang' jodala. Gimoro be omiya kae motegno manga mi family. Mosanya Bishop kuom biro e sechegi. Erokamano.
Erokamano Governor. Koro Bob Jalango owuok matin otuore to pod oduogo. Koro akwayo ni mondo representative mar joka Baridi Pauline Akwacha nyar Mama Grace gi Baba Ogot kende mantie miluongo ni Songi otedo Kabaridi. Omiyo representative mar joka Baridi kiyie to mondi bi.